I think we should be good now. Specifically anime music. The fuck? I didn't say anime music. No, I did. Okay. Yeah, wouldn't that be some shit? Let me see if I can get the stream up and then let me see if it's going good. If it's going good, then I'm here for the seminar. Oh, dude, you're in the wrong place. This isn't the seminar. This is the, what is this? This is the daydream or. There was a network error. I heard cemetery. And I was slightly confused. Let me see if I can get this. Dude, can you tell me like if this works for you? Cause it's not working for me. So I don't know if I'm live or not. So it's what's gonna happen is I'm gonna tell people to either watch the stream or just stay here. Right? A little. But again, for some reason I'm not. It's a network error. Number 2000. Okay, so my suspicion is here, let me just go live. Come on. Are we good? Oh shit, we're good. I don't hear anything. So that's really concerning. That's so weird, what the freak? Test. Test. Can you hear me? Oh wait, we're good. Oh shit. Sweet. Okay. I guess we're good. So, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Let me check my time. Time is 7:43 p.m. PST. And it's been a while since I've been on. I'm gonna be real, I haven't practiced all that much either, but hopefully this little seminar thing will, one, get me back into practicing, and two, get you guys back into practicing. So I thank you guys for showing up, and I guess now we will begin. What is up, guys? It is your boy, Easy and Demon, in the motherfucking house. Today, we are going to be going over the fundamentals of something. What are we going over? I don't know. And to be honest, I'm not quite done with all my notes, but that is okay. That is quite okay. Let's see if I can get my slides up somewhere, see if you guys can take a look-see. Alright, tell me if that link works. If that link doesn't work, then well, shit. But just a preface to this, I want to emphasize that everyone is different. Everyone is a very unique snowflake. Everyone is special in their own special way, which means everyone plays different music. You play music that is unlike anyone else's, and that is okay. You don't have to play like DemonZ, you don't have to play like Ishtar, you don't have to play like me, you don't have to play like fucking Z's or anything. You just have to play like yourself. And if you're happy with yourself, that's good. And if you're not happy with yourself, then this is the place for you, because we're gonna learn how to do a couple of things. All right, so let's get started on the analysis. If you guys can take a look at the slides, it's a little rough. I'm not actually done with it yet, but we are going over an analysis and improvisation on River Flows in You. River Flows in You. Everyone fucking hates this song. Why does everyone hate this song? Because it's so overplayed, right? The entry level for this piece is so very low that anyone can play this song, right? Anyone can play this song. Anyone can play. Anyone can play it, and that's okay, right? It sounds nice. This is a nice sounding piece, and there's nothing wrong with that. But not everyone plays it to the best of their ability. Not everyone plays it such that it's their style. Not everyone plays it to the best of their potential, right? And so today we're going to be analyzing what can people do, right, to play this a little better. Right? What's so simple about it? What's so difficult about it? And how can we take this song and put it into our repertoire to make it something even more? Alright, so first and foremost, who is AZ and Demon and why the fuck are we doing this? Well, I am AZ and Demon. I am 27 years old. As you can look in the slides, that's what's going on. I majored in computer science and criminal justice, and I graduated like 3 years ago. I took 5 years of symphonic flute, 10 years of self-taught piano, and about 2 months of classical. And I joined AniMusic in December 2017, left October 2018, and rejoined 2019. So, you might be thinking, okay, why should I listen to this guy, right? What credentials does this guy have? I don't, right? I don't have anything. I just have me, myself, right, and my experience, and that's really the takeaway, right? You take my experience as what it is, right? And to be honest, I would love for anyone else, right, to provide their input, right, their perspective, their experience, so then I can learn something from you, right? That's what this community is all about. Let's continue. The purpose of this little seminar, we're gonna see how long it's going to take. I was aiming for an hour, but if it's just a small party, I imagine there's not going to be many questions. I'm going to aim for about 30 minutes. We'll see how much you guys want to go over each specific part. But the purpose of this little seminar is to go over the fundamentals, all right? Provide alternative and improvisational options. Offer my perspective and, quote unquote, expertise, and to increase your level of playing, right? So at the end of this little seminar, I would hope that everyone has gained something from this seminar, right? Just at least one thing. And if you don't, then really that's on me, right? I either have not gone over all the subjects, or I've gone over all the topics in such a superficial manner that it doesn't really, no one can really absorb it. Or really, you just know so much more than me that there's nothing that I can say. And again, that is okay. But let's start with the fundamentals. Right, the fundamentals. I'm gonna go with playing River Flows normally. The first few things I'd say is watch your tempo, mind your dynamics, play the right notes, and to practice your skills. And you might be going, Demon, that's so arbitrary, right? What does that mean? right? What does it mean to play river flows normally? What does it mean to play something correctly? And as I said in my preface, it doesn't really mean anything, right? You have your own standard as to what that is. But I can tell you that there is one person who originally made this song, right? Yurima, right? He originally made the song, and he played it something, like, let me get something. Something like that, right? You want it to be very even. You want to be very precise, right? And you want to make sure that your dynamics are in control. And we're going to be talking more about this in a bit. Why do we want to be in control with our dynamics, right? Why do we want to play at a mezzo forte as opposed to playing at a forte, or playing at a piano as opposed to a double piano, right? There's a difference between right versus right. There's a difference, right? There's a difference in tone. There's a difference in personality, right? Think of music as something living, right? And you'll be on your way. Let's see, practice the right notes. So I imagine if everyone here, it appears, right, to be a moderate pianist, right? I'd like to say, right, because I recognize most of the names here. This volume of effect you're playing. Wait, does volume you play affect your tempo? Does volume you play at affect your tempo? It shouldn't. Right, we're talking about tempo and we're talking about volume. So if you want to play something quick, you can play it slowly as well, right? So, right? So tempo and whatchamacallit? Tempo and dynamics are definitely two different entities that you should learn how to control. Question, is there free yoga? No, there isn't. How it's good to use pedal in general. How it's good to use pedal in general. I would minimize pedal use unless you know what you're doing. And that's a very vague statement, but it makes sense for people who know how to use pedal. And I'll go over that in a bit, if that makes sense. But if you guys are done with the fundamentals, are we good to go on? I'm gonna go move on. And once I hear a bunch of yeses, right, or a bunch of whys, then we can move on from something a little more intermediate. And this will be a little interesting. Unless that's the intent. I want to save the questions to the end, to be honest. You know what? That's a good idea. Thank you. Alright, so let's go with intermediate improvisation. Intermediate improvisation. So, I said play the piece. I said learn the piece. I said play the piece normally. Right? What does that mean? Right? What does it mean when we play it normally? Does that mean that we play it the way that we feel it needs to be played? Or does that mean that we play it the way that the composer intended it for it to be played? That's up to you, right? I'd like to believe that within a piece there is a certain energy, right? There's a certain energy, and you can change that energy using a few different things, right? I have here listed arpeggios, chords, octave shifting, grace notes, and lastly, the change of melody, right? So I'll go over the first one first. Arpeggios. People love arpeggios. It is by far the easiest way to spice up a song, right? Where you start off as right? We have this very simple tritone. Simple tritone in your left hand, and then you're focusing on the whatchamacallit, the melody on your right. If we start arpeggiating, it starts sounding like right? It starts sounding busy, right? Even if we were to quiet it down, I sort of exaggerated a little. Even if we were to quiet down, even if we were to quiet it down, right? Change the dynamic a little smaller, lower. It's very busy, right? And it begs the question, what's the point? What are you trying to have show out? Right? What's supposed to catch your audience, right? And that's why you sort of look back on the original piece. How did the original piece sound, right? Right? Very simple left hand, such that the right hand comes out much easier. So, is there a happy balance in between? I don't know. It depends. Right? It depends on what you want to accomplish. It depends on what kind of idea you want to portray. And we're gonna go, on that note a little bit later. Idea. But energy, right? When we talk about an arpeggio, we talk about movement, right? There's a difference between versus right? The arpeggio provides movement within that specific chord, right? There's movement within this tritone. Right? There's movement there, right? And movement is energy, right? So when we have chords instead, right? If we have chords instead of arpeggios, we have a lack of movement, right? And that right hand comes out a lot more because the left hand's not doing anything. It's providing that very soft background, right? It sets the tone. And when you look into improvising, what kind of energy do you want to portray? What kind of energy shift? How do you want that energy to shift, right? Do you want it to go up? Do you want it to go down, right? So do you want to shift from right? When you mix in these arpeggios and chords, right, at the same time, you get a change, right, in energy. Right? And I think that's very important. Octave shifting, right? You might not think that changing the octave of which you play the melody is important, but it is. right? So let's say I started playing. Right? And there's a huge difference between playing, in this lower register right here, this low register right here, versus playing this high register right here. It gives a completely different tone. Right? But does that mean that we just go all the way to the highest register that we possibly can for that sake of energy change? Right? Because the higher we go, the lighter it tends to sound. The lower we go, the deeper it is, right? And again, these are obvious things that I'm saying, but let's consider it for a little bit, right? What's down here? Like the bassy notes, the really heavy notes. All right, what's up here? The really, really high notes where, at some point it's really hard to distinguish what that note actually is. So what's our sweet spot, right? I'd say it's about here. Maybe even down here, right? As a left hand thing. And maybe up here as a right here is probably where the highest I would play, right? Up here would be a little bit high, probably where I would go for the end of my playing. But when I took lessons from my teacher back in Arizona, she said that music imitates humans, right? Music is, as you know, a human construct, right? Music is whatever we as humans define it to be. That being said, when we try and put a definition on music, it's a lot harder. What is it that's appealing about notes coming together? And she said that your playing should imitate people's voices. Your playing should imitate singing, right? From humans. And I think that's a very interesting concept because it almost limits us, but at the same time, it gives us a lot more perspective, right? Most people's voices aren't really like down here, right? And at the same time, most people's voices aren't really up here. And we have a sweet spot, right? And this right here is about the area where your normal human voice would range. And again, that's okay. So, when to sort of summarize that, the higher we go, the lighter we go, and I actually like playing a little faster when I'm on the higher register to give that sort of airy feel, right? Sort of light feel, right? Really. Something like that. Melody. Oh wait, we have grace notes. Okay, so grace notes. This I can cover this really quickly. But grace notes, it's that little trill thing before you're playing. So. Right, just a very small shift in in I guess the flavor of the song. And again, that's okay. All right. Shit, I needed water, but I don't have any water. That's okay. All right, melody, and this almost sorts of goes into the next section, but let's talk about melody. There's no rules saying that you have to play the melody the way it's meant to be played. Right? So you don't have to play. You can easily just sort of chord the notes, right? And I do like chording your right hand, right? A lot of this song is just single notes. Right? I like adding that third. I like adding that fifth. You know, I actually like adding the entire freaking chord if you wanted, you know. Right? I feel like it adds depth. It adds fullness, right? A chord definitely gives you more fullness, right? It's hard to explain, but I imagine you guys know what I'm talking about. It's more full. It's as opposed to, you know, something very lone like that. You have, and you can even make it a full chord, right? Without first the third and the fifth, and then, you know, you have that octave. All right, let's go on to the next slide where we understand the chord progression. The chord progression, all right, and I guess we'll go over this, is what the normal order of operations for your left hand is going to be. Right, the key of the song is F sharp minor, or, you know, a major, right? But I'd argue that it's in F sharp minor. And the chord progression goes. Right, very standard F sharp minor, D major, A major, and E major. So why is this important? Why do we have to go over this? Because we use chord progressions all the time, right? It's not just this song, right? We use chord progressions all the time, right? But let's consider a different chord progression. All right, let's consider, what did I write down? F sharp minor, D, B, and then C sharp, right? So, aha! What the fuck was that, you might say? So, that felt much different, right? That felt a lot more different than right? There was yeah, that was B minor. Yeah, I'm gonna change that right now. That was B minor. I was doing this on my phone, so I didn't. How does this change the song? It gives a different tone. It definitely gives a different tone, and again, we start going into why do we do this? You know, why do we want to play in a certain chord progression when we can play in a different chord progression? What does this different chord progression do for us that the normal chord progression doesn't? Right? I would use a progression like that in the beginning, right? So we start off in, right? So we start off, with that different one, but then the rest of it, we keep the same. And then you wonder, like, oh man, like, is that chord gonna come back? And you leave that up to your audience to wonder, right? Because they'll know when it comes back. But what's so important about E? What is so important about E major in this particular example, right? And for that, I want to go over scales real quick, and I want to go over a few different, like, level 1 music theory, right? Let's consider the tonic, right? If let's just say C major for a second, right? The tonic is C major, is C, right? The subdominant is F, which is the 4th. The dominant is G, right, which is the 5th. And the leading tone, right, which is the 7th, is B. And you might be wondering, all right, Demon, why the fuck are you telling me this? I don't give a fuck. You should give a fuck. You should very much give a fuck, because this will help you listen, right? Listen to not just this song, right, but all songs, right? Right. So let's take, for example, I'll just play it. Right. We'll take that very, very popular song. Right. It's in C major. Right. So, why do I go over this? Because it goes C, A, F, G. And you're like, okay, why? Fucking listen, all right? That's the chord progression of a C major song, right? What I'm emphasizing, right? Listen to that F and that G, right? That subdominant leads into the dominant, which leads back into the tonic, right? This dominant will pull the most towards resolving to C, right? Right? And we know that G will resolve to C, right? Naturally, right? And when it follows F, right? Another example, right? We play canon in D, right? This A major right here, we want to resolve back into D. We want to resolve back into D major because that A right there, that's our dominant, that's our 5th, right? And that's important, right? When we talk about major pieces, right? It's songs that are in a major key, right? That's not the case for minor songs, right? Which is the one that we're going over right now, right? We're going over So you're like, okay, so what's the fucking point? The point is that you understand what pulls into resolving into that final that final tonic, right? So when we talk about E major in this case, this is not the dominant. This is not the subdominant. This is actually the leading tone, right? In this song, in this key, E major will want to resolve to F sharp minor. Let's take another example. You guys know Brave Shine, right? And again, we have that E major that wants to resolve into F minor, right? And this isn't the first time that happens. This happens again when we do the, how would I call it? I want to call it the bridge. I'd call it the pre-chorus, right? Right? That E major pulls that F minor. And again, you're like, okay, I get it, right? Chord progressions, they're a thing. How does that affect my playing, right? It affects your playing because now you know, right, an area that you can emphasize either more or less to change the energy, right? So let's say I play River Flows. We're going back to River Flows, right? We're saying I'm in the middle of... Right? We know that that E major is going to resolve, right, to F sharp minor. We know that. So we use that knowledge to change the energy in the way that we resolve it, to set the tone in the next measures, right? And when we talk about energy, right, we can talk about chords and inverted chords, right? We can do, right, this little build-up. Right? Or you can really slow it down, right? When you slow down the tempo, you decrease the energy, right? When you go back to the normal tempo, it gives the illusion of increase of energy, right? Well, I mean, it is actual increase of energy, but it's not increased from where you started, right? Right? So that would be that, right? It's all about changing of energy, right? I feel like when you play something monotone throughout, right? That's akin to someone just talking to you monotone. How do people talk? Right? People talk with inflections. People talk with emphasis on different words, to portray a different meaning, right? They don't talk monotone like this, right? They talk with inflections, right? And I feel like that's what you should do with your playing, right? You should make it interesting. You should make it like someone's talking. And if you don't, that's okay too. Again, it depends on the what idea you're trying to portray. Now, let's go over to something a little more advanced. let's go over understanding and changing the idea, right? So in the previous section, no, let's recap a little. In the first section, I said play it correctly, or play it normally, right? I guess play it the way it was intended to be playing, from your perspective, of course. In the second section, I said vary it a little, right? Play around with the arpeggios, play around with the chords, right? And start changing the energy. But now I'm saying change the idea. And you might be like, okay, what is the idea, right? And I don't want to use the term motif, right? But I guess it's something similar to that, right? Something that falls along similar lines of that. Let's talk about already existing variations on the song, right? When we talk about River Flows in You, we think of... All right, I'm gonna take away the left hand for a second. And that's the melody, right? Right? Or, something like that. But what does that mean when we say we change the idea, right? Well, I mean, we can shift the notes, right? Right? I'm just shifting it down a little, right? And that's a very simple shift. But a lot of people don't know that this song actually has lyrics to it, right? Yurma himself sings it, right? And what was it? He starts off, right, to set the tone, right? But then he slows it down, right? There's no more arpeggios, now it's just chords. Ah, shit. Right? Very different, right? But it still has the same notes, right? Just different rhythm, right? We start from the... Right? And we go to... Right? It's not all that different, right? But we change the rhythm a little bit. We shift the notes a little bit here or there. And now we have a different melody. We're changing the idea. There's another there is another improvisation, right? Also by Yurima, featuring Henry, which is some K-pop star. But they play it a lot differently, right? They start by doing this little thing like. And then they go into, a little bit more runs. And then they they change the chord progression. And they go into a. And then they go with a very subtle, right, half key change, right? Was it? And I think that's very interesting, right? And I always considered key changes to be sort of that cheap way to get an increase in illusion, right? So just imagine that I'm just playing. Right? Volume doesn't change. Tempo doesn't change, but the key changes, right? And when we go up from the previous key, there's an illusion of increased energy, right? We were going back to the idea of energy, right? And again, that's okay, right? I'm just saying that you can add key changes into your playing, right? To change your energy, right? To change the kind of energy that you're portraying, right? And it doesn't have to be a half key, right? It can be a whole key, right? I like to do this modulation where it's. I like to do that modulation. It gives different tone to your piece, right? It gives it a different flavor, right? It adds spice, right? So those were a couple of examples, right? But a popular thing that happens within this community, right, is tying together pieces, right? Flowing into another piece, right? And that just depends on what your knowledge of music is, right? It depends on how you're comfortable with keys, right? For me, I feel that whatever key the song is in, that should be irrelevant, right? Right? And so there's a lot of different ways you can go around that. Right? And again, that just depends on what your knowledge of playing is. Right? It doesn't even have to be in the same key. Right? It can be whatever the heck you want it to be. So, right. Okay. And that's all I have for my slides right now. But I guess the takeaway is, I guess for the advanced improvisations, change the idea. Right? Change the idea such that it is still consistent. Oh shit, it's dark in here. It's consistent with what your playing is. Oh, I'm sorry. It's consistent with the idea of the original song, right? You want it to still be recognizable as, whatever, right? As River Flows in You. Um, you also want to play around with, different chords, right? We know that this E major, right, is going to resolve into this F minor, right? So we don't have to just play this, right? We can play right. We can diminish it a little, right? Diminishing the E major, right, to resolve into the E major, and then the F minor is another way of increasing energy, right? And right, or something like that. All right. And with that being said, I will throw it up to questions. I imagine this was probably review for a lot of you guys, but um, for those of you who it wasn't, I'd like to hear some feedback. Like what did you think? Um, what do you want to know more? Um, and if you have any questions about your playing in particular, right? For example, if you guys had a particular way of, I guess, addressing this piece, right? Taking it on head forward, how would you go about it? For me personally, I like listen to the song and then sort of deriving the idea. I actually don't know how to play the song the way that the composer intended it because I don't have the sheet music. I listen to it and I sort of derive the idea, right? He likes to hold all his notes to hold the same value, right? So, for example, like right, this part especially, right? Right? It almost seems like if you're listening properly, right? That this part right here sounds like it's returning, right? It's supplementary. Um, but you can play that differently, right? Let's take that part and we quiet it, right? We'll play the original stuff in mezzo forte, or yeah, we'll play mezzo forte and then we'll try and quiet down this part. Right? And you barely hear this part, right? But it gives a different feel, right? It's much more in the background, as opposed to it coming out as much, right? As when it has the same weight, the same dynamic as the rest of the song. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Don't make me cry. How long have you been playing? I've been playing for about an hour now. What is the average velocity of an unladen swallow? I don't know. When I hear a piece, I think it's cutting into something soft. Very slowly. I enjoy the magic class. I learned a lot. This is way better than my classical music. Talking with is very personal. I try to, right? I tutored computer science for quite a bit, and I was president of the billiards club at my university and captain. So I had I had the joy of teaching a lot of new players how to play pool, right? And with a game that involves a lot of technique, you definitely need to be very precise with the way that you hold the cue, with the way that you stroke through the ball and such. That being said, it's become a necessity to be very clear and concise, just so there's no misunderstanding, right? That being said, if there are no other questions, I would like to thank you guys all very much for showing up. Question: how does one teach someone else? You teach someone else by understanding the material, right? If you cannot explain it, right, to someone, right, in a way that makes sense, then you have no place in teaching, right? In this, I guess, little sound here. I'm gonna turn the light a little. All right. In this seminar, I broke it up into a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? I said, let's go over the fundamentals, right? And when we're good with the fundamentals, we can move on to the intermediate stuff, right? About chords, right? About chord inversions, right? About arpeggios, all right? And the effects of arpeggios and chords, right? By themselves and together. And what does that do to the overall tone of the piece, right? Then after that, I said, okay, so now instead of playing around with the energy of the piece, let's start playing around with the idea, right? The original idea. All right, so now we're not playing. Right? We play around with the idea. And I feel that when you get to the level where you can play around with the idea, right? That's when you have a true understanding of the song. Right? So I guess to go back to your original questions, these how does one teach someone else? Really understand what you're playing, right? Really understand. For example, like with your arrangements, these. Why is it that you have a lot of these like things like that where we're having so like I'm not a fan of this because it's the idea of movement, but it's not really movement because you're playing the same notes over and over again. So it's like kind of like a glorified sustain, right? Where but it's playing over and over again, which is okay. It depends on the idea that you're trying to portray. Myself, I like arpeggios because you go up towards something else. I like adding arpeggios flowing from one hand to the other hand, right? So let's say I'm arpeggiating A major, right? Right? So yeah, because arpeggios are just naturally more flowy, right? That's how they sound, right? If you play it correctly, right? If you just just do that, right? Then it sounds very busy, right? And you don't want that unless again that's your intention. But like I said, it's about knowing what kind of techniques you have in your in your pocket, and then using whatever to portray a certain idea, right? To tell a certain story, right? Yurima, when he's playing River Flows in You, has a very specific story that he's trying to play, right? when he sings the song, right? The lyrics, they're clear. It's clearly a love song, right? About longing, right? Thus the arpeggios, right? But the very short arpeggios, right? That tritone, right? Right? So when it right there, right? When it ends right there, right? It gives this sense of longing, right? This right here sustains, right? Until the next chord, right? Until the next measure, right? Right? Right there, right? It's simple. It's very simple, but only because one, he wants to emphasize the right hand to come out, and two, the left hand doesn't need to be complex, right? It's there as filler, but the movement, right, that stops right there on that third note right here, that's what gives that longing feeling, right? The sense of like you want to reach out, right, to that next measure. And you can't get that effect when you play any other way, right? Because let's say we chord it instead, right? Let's say we just instead of appreciating that tritone right there, we just do. Right? It doesn't have that same longing feeling because with that small arpeggio, right, it's moving towards something, right? And that's where you get that longing feel. Adjacent whole tones. I might be using the term tritone very, very wrong. So, I mean, if you guys have a problem with that, I'm sorry. Let's see what else. I could reach a tenth, yeah, right here. Can you improv with only tritones? What does that mean? I'm not sure what that means. How do you go about creating a chord progression that doesn't stray too far from the original? That is a damn good question. You know what? Let me go with the first one. So, Alera, I went over this the first part, right? So for example, right with the song. Right, that's the normal chord progression, right? We can change it up a little, add that B minor and then a C sharp major. Now, why does that work? Why does that work? Why does that work? Because we're talking about that fifth right there. That fifth right here, that's our dominant, right? We take the major of that, right? And it resolves to that F minor. It pulls, right? It's not just the leading tone that pulls, but also the major dominant, right? And you can also change. So I feel that you can also drop the whatchamacallit, the song a half step to give that illusion of losing energy. So that when you go back into your original key, there's the illusion of gaining energy, right? So this before. I definitely had that. How did I have that chord progression? Had that F major in there. Let me think. Here. That goes here. This goes there. This goes there. This the yeah, so you can change the chord progression back to I guess a different chord progression. Where's it? So, you know, it's all about understanding chord progressions. You don't have to start with this F sharp minor. You can in fact start with this D major, go to this E major, go down to the C sharp minor, resolve on that F sharp minor, because again, this right here, that's the dominant, and the dominant pulls to the tonic right here, which is what you started with. Okay, let's see what else we got here. So when you get some sheet music, what do you start looking at first to learn the piece? I am very glad that you're looking at sheet music, Koob. I feel that sheet music is a very good reference point, but sometimes it doesn't tell you everything. There are a lot of times where you don't get that crescendo in there, right? You don't get that change in tempo. You don't get that I guess the what should we call it, the whatever the fuck to hold, I guess the note in a particular place for any sort of time. But I do like sheet music. It is it's definitely the classic way of learning music. When I first look at sheet music, the first thing I do is look what is the key, right? What is the key, and then what is the chord progression? And then once I understand that, I listen to the melody. You know, what's so special about the melody? You know, about where does it go? And then at that point, most of the time, I just scrap the sheet music because I understand most of it already. I don't need the sheet music because I'm not trying to play someone else's interpretation. Right? I'm trying to play my interpretation. I'm trying to play from my perspective. Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions, concerns, comments? Hence why there are arguments for river flows being an F sharp minor and A major. It really depends on how you want to like end it, right? I mean, you can end it in like A major, and then all of a sudden like it gives a different tone, right? We always say like, oh yeah, the major is like happy, and then the minor is sad. Well, I mean, it's what you want to make it, right? For example, when I do that very sudden key change, up one half step, I feel like that's almost happier, right? Um, let's try. Right? It almost sounds happier, right? Because you're going from this chord progression that's going down, right? The way it starts, it goes, and then down to E, then down to D. Then the same is repeating. I have 19 years. I started learning piano 8 months ago. In 2021, I want to join university and learn pieces. RCM grade 6, like Chopin Waltz. Dude, good luck, dude. Honestly, if you want to, go for it. Life is too short to not do what you want. Instead, I became a software engineer for a private company, and I make way more money than I would have as a pianist, but here I am. Let's see, what else? What is the most important thing about doing scales? I think the most important thing about doing scales is not so much the evenness, right, that you play the scales, right? Though that is very important. I feel that playing scales is very important because you understand the key more, right? And when you understand the key more, keys become arbitrary, right? You should be able to play whatever in whatever key, right? Let's say. preludes, fugues, impersonatas. I really wanted to study Bach's prelude or fugue in C minor. I really wanted to do that, but I never had the time to do that. Alright, do we have anything else? Do we have anything else? If we have nothing else, thank you guys very much for showing up. This has been your boy, Easy and Demon in the motherfucking house. And this has been, I guess, try number 1 for our first seminar in anti-music. I want to know what you guys think. I want to know if you guys was a success. I want to know if it was an utter complete failure. I want to know if this was something that you can see us doing in the future, but by someone who's better, or by a guy who makes more sense. In the suggestions, all right, I'm gonna go in suggestions right here. I'm gonna say DemonZ. Whatchamacallit? Feedback starts here. Right? Feel free to add your feedback, and then in about 5 to 10 minutes, I'll close it out and say DemonZ feedback ends here. If you want to remain anonymous, do contact Z's, right? And then he'll put it up on the suggestions as to what my feedback is. Otherwise, if you just want to tell me what the feedback is, just throw it up there on there, and I don't really care either way. But with that being said, I would say look forward to your boy Towel. Towel's going to be doing a little something similar to this. And depending, I don't know, I guess this was somewhat popular. I am debating on whether or not I should do a repeat session tomorrow at 7 a.m. local time, just to accommodate for, everyone in the Asia region and the Australia region. But again, we'll see. And with that being said, just go ahead, leave your suggestions. I don't think I have anything left to say. I think that was pretty much it. I'm glad you guys are still here. This is definitely an attempt to reboot the server, and I want the point of this, right, and was to sort of open the door, right, to show that not just me can do it, right? Anyone can do this, right? I think I had someone step up before and say that they wanted to teach basic sheet music reading, right? And I think that's excellent. I know Towel's is stepping forward and saying like, hey, I'm quite jazzy in my style. I would like to also share my jazz experience. So I guess I'm just opening the door to you guys, right? If there's anything in particular that you are, I guess, an expert at or comfortable with sharing for an extended period of time, right, amongst an audience, amongst a community like this one, just let a mod know, right? Let a mod know and say, hey, Mr. Moderator, I wanna do a class, an analysis on freaking opening to Evangelion, right? Right, like I really love that piece, and I wanna do an analysis on that piece, or whatever, right? And I think that would be cool, right? I want to see more people interact and be like, oh, like I'm really excited about this, and then you guys can share feedback, right? And I think that's the most important part, right? Everyone has feedback. Everyone has different ideas, and when we share all those ideas, it's no longer a thing about like, oh, whose is better than whose arrangement, right? It's all about how do I have your style affect my style, right? What can I gain from you to improve my style in a way that I'm comfortable, or vice versa, right? So Like I said, I would really like to see more people um, just talk, right? Just talk and talk about what they're passionate about, right? Which is music, right? That's why we're all here because we're all passionate about music in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether we play music for like 10 years plus, or whether we've just started, or whether we have like maybe even like 5 months on our back, right? And that's okay because we all start somewhere. Junior question: where do you get the confidence to play in front of other people? I get the confidence from knowing what I'm talking about. When you know what you're talking about, it's easier to tell everyone else, right? What it is that you want, right? To portray. And I guess that goes back to the whole like, do you understand what you're teaching, right? And if you don't, then you should step back a little, right? Step back, look at it, and be like, okay, like why does this work, right? How does this work? And how can I describe it to an audience such that it makes sense? All right. With that being said, I don't think there's any other suggestions. I'm gonna close out the I'm gonna do like 5 more minutes. All right, and then I'm gonna close out. But thank you guys for showing up. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna close out the stream now. I may or may not do a repeat session in the morning. When did I start? I started about 7:30ish. It's been about an hour and a half, so it was pretty consistent with what I was expecting. About 1 hour stream time. And just to be clear, I want to reiterate that this server does have a lot of talented people. And I think it's a shame when we have so many talented people, yet no one is stepping forward to share their knowledge, right? To share their perspective. And just imagine what we're missing, right? Imagine if everyone shared their knowledge, right? The overall average level of your member in here would be way better, right? Like you can just pick any random person, right? And if they attended every single session, right, of every pianist that was like really good or had something to share, right? So much knowledge is being shared that there's no way that you couldn't be motivated to play, right? So I guess this is a call out to everyone else who's in this server. I know Naya is very good. I'm sad that he's not here, but like Fonzie, for example, he's a very prolific YouTuber. Tao, of course, and Z's a very very prolific transcriber on YouTube. So again, I'm opening the door right now. Step forward, right? Step forward and share your knowledge, right? When you share your knowledge, right, people become invested in your passion with music, and then everyone's passionate, right? Then the server is back up and running. All right, thank you guys. This has been AZ and Demon in the motherfucking house. We are done. Good night.